Okay, so Michael here, McEwen Gunstocks, and looks like I'm done with the duplicator on this project. What you didn't see is I skinnied up this side a little bit more than the master was. I know it's going to impact my swoosh a little bit, but I want it light and I want it to be a little bit symmetric, so I left it just a little bit fatter than this side. Even factory stocks are never the same thickness on either side, and if there's any kind of features on one side or the other, it requires that thickness, so the forearm width is always going to be a little bit off. But anyway, I just skinnied it up a little bit, and then I flipped, first I finished cutting out the trigger well opening, the trigger opening, not well, and then this would be more properly a well, the trigger guard opening on this side. I did the trigger slot or whatever first so that when I flipped it upside down I could drop into these two and make sure that there wasn't any rotational error. I have had rotational errors in the past. I fought them for many years actually, and just in the last couple of years did a round of improvements on the machine where I found tiny little errors that all collectively added up to make it be kind of a little pain in the ass. So I used to do a little tiny bit of final adjustment here before copying the trigger guard opening, but now dropped in there perfect. It was a beautiful thing. So now, and I also worked down here a little bit so I don't have to run it through the bandsaw. Yeah, so I think it's gonna come out. Let me take a couple of measurements here. I left 25 thou, so that means 50 thou total thickness. Yeah, I think it's alright. Maybe something like that. Yeah, it actually looks like about 50 thou. So it gives me something to work with on both sides. So it's done. So next, cut off this end and spend some time on the belt sander. Yep, it's going to be a gun stock. Whoops, let me get it in here a little bit. I just don't bother trying to carve this on the duplicator. It won't take very long with the sanding drum to just shape this all around. Maybe I should have. We'll see how it goes. I chose not to. I don't think I usually do. So yeah, about an hour with some horsepower and it'll look pretty darn good. Boy, I got some pretty good holes to fill. There's that one. Oh, this is hard. That one looks pretty cavernous. That one we've been talking about. And then there's one there. There's two there. There's one there. Oh, looks like, no. Yeah, the other side looks pretty good so far. Okay, I'll check back in here in a bit.
being pictures from the camera. What I'm doing is I'm paying attention to the streamer of sanding dust that's coming off. So if I see a little stream of sanding dust coming up here, it shows me where down here it's coming off from. So there's like a valley here. There's a little bit of a valley forming. So I want to stay away from this. I'm only trying to remove material here. So I'm going to do that because this is all curved. I'm looking for that sanding stream. See, it was coming off of the wrong spot. So when I move to get it where I want it. Made a big picture to fill. Unfortunately, you missed me shaping the forearm. I didn't turn the camera on, but that's a very fun, fluid set of motions to shape the forearm. Let's take it into the shop and see how it's looking.
I like taking a picture of the stock fresh out of the machine on top of a pile of everything that wasn't a gun stock. But I want to get my makeshift tabletop up on here so I can better work on this. But I just want to take a quick peek at it. This alcohol bottle is almost empty, but wow. Can't see much down here, it's so rough from, I was just shaping it with the carbide a little bit, but wow, I hope you can see it. Yep, it's going to be gorgeous. Alright, I'll turn the camera on if it gets interesting. Okay, hello everybody, Michael here, McEwen Gunstocks. I'm not sure where I left off on whatever may be the last video that I put together to post, but you have missed out on several hours or more of shaping and well, not really sanding so much as just shaping. Using drum sanders, the belt sander, round carbide burrs, the large ones, and rolled up machine belt sandpaper. So it's at the 80, everything's at the 80 grit level right now, so really rough. Shaped the trigger guard opening, this curve, and relieved the edges here for the fingers, and filled a bunch of the holes, although some of them need to be filled again, and there's one new one that appeared someplace, so I gotta do some more epoxy filling. But right now I'm at the point of cutting the length of pull, and I have shown this before, but I feel a little guilty leaving you out of so much interesting work that has just transpired. Frankly, I just jumped out here this morning in the shop and just wanted to get straight to working on this and didn't take the time to set up the camera. but this is, I think, maybe useful for you. So what I've got is I turned this piece of steel here so it's heavy and it's got a wide base. I used to use something else that I just found, some random thing that like some kind of big rivet or something, I don't know. But then a few years ago I turned this on the lathe, so I'm sure you can find some similar kind of thing. So that goes on the table and goes up touching the trigger. And I got a couple of little blocks here supporting the stock so that it's more or less level on the table so I can work with it. And then a measuring stick goes right up here and touches that. And so now, rather than trying to eyeball with the obvious parallax error that would result, now we're measuring exactly from the front of the trigger. And I know my own length of pull is between 14.5 and 14 3/4. Reading my notes, the last 3 guns I made for myself, I did at 14 3/4, and I liked it. I'll go ahead and start with 14 3/4 with this one, and if I want it shorter, because I am building it for offhand use, and largely, though, the length of pull, while we measure it from the trigger to the inside of the bicep with the arm at 90 degrees, that is just a reference guide. What we're really setting with length of pull is eye relief. Now, most of the time we can adjust the scope back and forth to accommodate a pretty wide range of eye relief, so the usual measurement from trigger finger to the bicep is just fine. And mine is in the 14.5, 14 3/4 range. But with this gun, I have no ability to adjust the eye relief, maybe 1/8 inch at most, because of the large magazine. The center box of the scope has to be in front of the magazine. And then with the only reach forward mount that works that I found, it just basically provides virtually no room for adjustment. So I'm going to start at the longest length that I like, 14 3/4, and throw it up to my face and see if I can look through the scope okay, if I'm happy with it, or if I want it. If I can get away with shorter, I'd be happy to do shorter, because shorter is a little more comfortable for shooting offhand. Anyway, I'm glad I allowed as much wood as I could on the buttstock, because it looks like I'm going to cut off about 3/32 of an inch, probably less than the width of the blade, to get it to the to get it where I need it. The pad that I use is a 1/2 inch, so I'm looking at 14 1/4 inches where I'm going to cut it. I have gone ahead and marked it. I'm going to take the action out, and I'm going to put the stock upside down on the comb is taller than the top of the stock, top of the forearm, I mean. So I'm going to use a thick sheet of steel or plywood or something to elevate the forearm so that the comb is clear of the table, and then I'll use an angle to draw that and make sure when I cut it that I'm cutting it at the angle I want. A lot of guns are cut with a bit of an angle like this. I like to cut mine at 90 to the top of the forearm. It's pretty much shooter's preference, and it's a little bit of probably more of an aesthetic thing than a comfort issue or an ergonomic issue. I like it square, so that's what I'm going to do. Then before I marked it, I wrapped the buttstock in tape, and that helps prevent little wood fibers from ripping out and causing any issue there. And then when I make the cut, and I might bring you over with me when I do that, but I use a sliding compound miter saw. I use a Makita with the electric brake, which is nice, but what's really nice about that saw is it has 2 slide bearings, one on each rail, where a lot of the commercial saws, like DeWalt for example, or at least last I checked, correct me if I'm wrong, but uses a slide bearing on one and a plastic bushing on the other. The Makita is really accurate. And then when I make the cut, I make sure that I don't put any sideways force on it, that because there is a little bit of flex, right? Certainly if you really put some force on it, you can flex it quite a bit. Sometimes when I make a cut on something, I'll flex it away from the work while the blade spins down. It has just a tiny bit of flex. So I want to make sure that all my force is just linear, and I don't bury the saw in the wood and then cut. It'll usually burn it. Anytime you pause with the saw, it's going to burn. The only way a saw blade in the wood stays cool is if wood is being removed. So I keep the saw in constant motion and go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, very gently going down through the cut until it's all the way through. So that's that quick update, and once I get that cut, I'll probably bring you over with me to the belt sander where we shape it, and then we'll be about final fills and sand and oil. Yay, can't wait. Okay, I'll be back.
Okay, so hopefully you can see how I've got this jigged up. I've got a piece of aluminum extrusion here that I use to extend the back flat section of the saw out that direction. But the comb is higher than the top of the forearm, so I can't put the top of the forearm on that extrusion. So I clamped a piece of 2x2 on here, and then put the top of the forearm up against that, and then I've spanned across here with a piece of plywood with the clamp. And I'm also going to hold it. I'm going to be careful not to put too much force on the wood. As I explained a minute ago, multiple back and forth, very light pressure passes. If I try to bury the saw into the wood, there's going to be torque and twisting, and this is held, but not super securely, so I'm going to go really gentle. I'm going to reposition the camera so I can get in front of the saw, and then we'll make the cut.